I'm walking through the airport. An older gentleman stops, he pulls down his mask, looks at me, and says ni hao, which is hello in Chinese, and then ching chong, which is a racial slur that's been used for decades. And
皆さんこんにちは、ソロです。というわけで今回はコロナ禍で受けたアジア人の人種差別について動画を翻訳してきたので、それを一緒に見ていきたいと思います。概要としては CNN のアジア系アメリカ人女性リポーターがこのコロナ禍で1時間に3回もの人種差別を受けたっていうのを話しているもので、それがニュース番組でね放送されてるっていう感じになってます。ちょっとねこれね胸くそ悪い部分もあるので、気分がね悪くなったりね、いやもう嫌だなって思う場合は見ないようにねしてください。というわけでこのチャンネルでは米軍基地内大学の話やこういったねような動画を翻訳したりしています。そういったね動画をね見逃したくないよって思ってくれた方は今のうちにチャンネル登録よろしくお願いします。それでは早速行ってみよう。
Racist rhetoric against Asians and Asian Americans has become a real problem in the U.S. amid the coronavirus that originated in China. The president is promoting this kind of language. He refers to and has referred to the virus as the China virus, as the Kung flu. And Asian Americans are reporting an increase in racist encounters. After one of my CNN colleagues, Amara Walker, experienced 3 such incidents during just one trip to New Orleans International Airport, she talked about it online, on Twitter. She wrote, quote, I hate that I have to say this, but I belong. We Asian Americans belong. I was born and raised in the U.S. I am as American as apple pie, and I am as American as Korean barbecue. I am American. Please don't question me about that fact, ever. Amara Walker is joining us now. Amara, thank you for writing about this. I think this was so important for people to understand what a lot of Asians and Asian Americans in the U.S. have been going through. Tell us what happened to you.
And that's why I wrote about it. You know, I wanted to be a voice for so many of us Asian Americans who don't speak out when these kinds of things happen. And I do want to say, Brianna, if I had encountered just one racially charged incident yesterday, I wouldn't have probably posted about it. But it was the fact that it happened back to back to back within a span of an hour, Brianna, is what really shook me to my core. And right now, I have to admit, I'm shaking right now. I still can't believe that we went through this, that I went through this. Okay, so here's what happened. First incident, I'm walking through the airport. An older gentleman stops, he pulls down his mask, looks at me, and says ni hao, which is hello in Chinese, and then ching chong, which is a racial slur that's been used for decades. And I was stunned. I mean, this has happened to me before, sadly, but every time it happens, it shocks me. And like I've done in the past, I just kept walking. I didn't know what to say. And he walked away, and the more I thought about it, my blood was just boiling. And thankfully, I ran into him inside the terminal. He was standing right behind me when I was trying to buy souvenirs for my husband and daughter. And I turned around and I said to him in a really stern voice, I said, do you understand what you said to me was racist and it was racially charged? Do you understand, sir? And he kind of looked at me with a smug look, and he just said, I don't know what you're talking about, and he walked away.
Wow.
And so then I walked to the gate where my producer was sitting, and I was like, you won't believe what just happened. I'm really upset. Here's what happened. And I'm not kidding. As if on cue, literally within like 5 minutes, a young man walks up right in front of me while I'm sitting at my gate, and he's not wearing a mask. He comes right up to my face and says, hey, do you speak English? And I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And the first thing, I mean, I shot back immediately because I was already angry. And I said to him, why would you assume that I don't speak English? Tell me, why would you assume I don't speak English? And he said, well no, what language do you speak? And I said, well, obviously English, but I also speak Spanish, because I knew he was expecting that I would say Chinese or Japanese or Korean. Anyway, I mean, and then he started to mumble and speak incoherently. It sounded like he was mocking the Asian language. My producer was really disturbed by all this. And also the people who were sitting at the gate started yelling at him to get away from me, because I kept telling him, you gotta leave me alone. We're in a pandemic, you know, put on a mask.
Because he was getting close, he was not wearing a mask and he was getting close to you.
Exactly, right. You know, and so he was in my personal space.
And then your producer basically got security, right? Got a police officer, and then what happened?
This is where, talk about pouring salt into a gaping wound, right? I mean, I told the officer what happened, and my producer, who was upset, said, this guy was saying racial slurs to her. Can you believe that? The police officer stopped. He approached my producer, literally, again, almost nose to nose. And again, we're in a pandemic. And he said very angrily, that is not racist. Asking someone if they speak English, that is not racist, okay? Do you understand me? And I mean, this police officer was, I would say, 6'4", 6 foot. I mean, he was huge. And I was intimidated. Everyone around us was watching. My poor producer was, both nervous and scared. And we said, okay, fine, it wasn't racist. And he walked away. They did track him down, but I was so shaken by all of this and so disturbed that my producer kind of shooed me onto the plane and said, just you got to get away from this, But yeah. I do, want to say that my producer was extremely defensive of me, and also there was about 5 or 6 people who were sitting at the gate who came to my defense and were apologizing for no reason. They had nothing to apologize for, but they expressed their shock.
Yeah, I mean, it's thank goodness that they were there also just to kind of back you up and support you. But you write in this talking about getting made fun of as a child. But I also wonder if here in recent years, but the pre-COVID era, did you ever experience anything like this? I know you travel a lot for work. Have you ever been through anything like this?
No, absolutely not. I mean, for it to happen, and look, these were all, I believe, were unrelated incidents, right? But for it to happen so quickly in succession, within about 45 minutes to an hour, that to me was what knocked me off my feet. And Brianna, I want to make it clear, it's not about me, because Asian Americans across the country deal with this on a regular basis, and we're not talking about it. And many Asian Americans don't raise their voices, including myself. I probably wouldn't have written about this if this wasn't so egregious. And this is why I'm speaking out. I'm normally a private person, but I want to be that voice. And I have to say, I've gotten so many emails from strangers and even colleagues at CNN that I've never met who are Asian or of Asian descent. And they said, thank you so much for talking about this and explaining to people why it is racially insensitive to assume that I don't speak English or anyone else that looks like me doesn't speak English. Why would you assume that? Because you're saying that this is not American, that we are foreigners. You're marginalizing us, and you're telling us we don't belong. And I hate, and I wrote in my piece, or on my post, that I hate that I have to say I belong. I'm American as you. Why do I have to justify that I'm American? Why? Because of the way I look? You're judging me by my skin color?
Yeah, no, you shouldn't have to. And look, you normally tell other people's stories, so I know it's kind of a weird position for you to be in, but I also think there's so many people going through this who don't have the platform you have. And like you said, clearly they're appreciative that this is being discussed. They're going through this. You unfortunately have been through this, Amara. And I really want to thank you for coming on and talking about it and putting a face on it. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I just mention one thing, Brianna?
Sure.
I mentioned in my post that, for the sake of the story, the first gentleman who approached me was a man of color, and I got a little bit of flack about that on social media. I mentioned it, and because there's this misconception out there that only white people are racist, or you can't be racist if you're a minority. This man, I believe, looked to be South Asian.
Okay. Amara, I appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for being here.
はい、というわけで見ていったんですが、どうでしたか？個人的なね意見としては、動画内でアジア系アメリカ人女性はアメリカはね私たちの居場所、アジア系アメリカ人でも私たちの居場所だっていうことは言ってたんですけど、もちろんね彼女たちのね居場所だと思います。根本的に今いるアメリカの人たちって全員移民じゃないですか。だからまあその人たちがねお前の居場所はないみたいな言ったところでね、じゃあいやお前はってなりますよね。だからまあ本当に個人的な意見ですけど、そういう風に言ってくるのはまあ普通に良くないなとは思います。であと3個目くらいのエピソードで警察官の人に英語喋れますかって聞いてくるのは差別主義ではないって言ってたと思うんですけど、まあねこれはねアメリカならではだなーってね思いますね。っていうのも日本だと日本語くらいしか喋れないですし、日本人ばっかりじゃないですか。だから日本人にね日本語喋れるって聞くのはね変だと思うんですけど、ただこれがねアメリカだとねそうじゃないんだなってね思いますね。確かに英語喋れるのかって聞いてくることはねめちゃくちゃわかるんですけど、アメリカ人だし日本語喋れる みたいな感じで英語喋れるって聞かれるのはね、確かに心外だなとは思いますね。それに加えて今回の件はアジア系のね言語を真似して、でね、彼女自体をねバカにしたと思うので、普通に差別だと思いますね。正直その人のね表情であったりいろんな面を加味してだとは思うんですけど、僕もね基地内で働いてたことがあって、そういうこともあったので、そういうのも含めてね海外かなとかって思ったりはします。もちろん差別は良くないことですし、差別をするっていう声はね頭が悪いことなので、やらないししないってことはね守ってほしいなって思ったりします。というわけで今回の動画は以上です。この動画がね少しでも役に立ったよとかね面白かったって人は高評価よろしくお願いします。そしてこの動画の他にも基内大学の詳細やこういった動画をね翻訳してで配信をしたりしています。そういったね動画を見逃したくないよって思ってくれた方は今のうちにチャンネル登録よろしくお願いします。というわけで今回もありがとうございました。また次回の動画で会いましょう。
La 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 la, my weed soul.